Great. So welcome everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Eileen Corcoran and I am the Community Outreach Manager for the Vermont Historical Society. And we're excited to have you all here for our first virtual roundtable of 2022 on fundraising and support. Just a couple of quick tech notes as it relates to Zoom. I think we're all a bit more familiar these days, but just a reminder, sort of best practices, if you're not actively speaking, we would love it if you might mute yourself, but feel free to unmute if you'd like to talk. Use the raise your hand function or put anything you'd like in the chat and we'll sort of go back and forth. This is a roundtable, so we do have some folks here who are going to talk specifically about their projects, but we also hope that other people will join in, ask questions, have some dialogue, and talk about the topic. I would like to start us with land acknowledgement. The Vermont Historical Society acknowledges that we do our work on land that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange of Indigenous peoples. The Western Abenaki have long been caretakers of this land, which they call Ndakina. We seek to address historical exclusion by embracing an inclusive understanding of the Vermont experience. In partnership with multiple communities, we educate the public about inequities as we work to change our own institution. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tori Hart, our Director of Development, who's going to be facilitating the conversation today. Take it away, Tori.
Hi, everybody. So we've got Don McFeeters and Fern McClure here today who are going to speak a little bit about their work that they've been doing at the Sheldon Historical Society. We're hopefully going to also be joined by somebody from the Pownell Historical Society to share some work that they've been doing. But I'm going to have Don and Fern start. If you'd like to tell the group a little bit about what you've all been doing.
Okay, well, I guess I will start. I'll tell you a little bit about our organization. The Sheldon Historical Society was organized in 1991 in response to a suggestion made at the 1991 town meeting to plan a Sheldon bicentennial celebration. The event was so very well attended that the society decided to sponsor a celebration every 5 years and renamed it Sheldon Old Home Day Parade and Barbecue. I joined the society in 2011 as the society was recruiting volunteers to plan the fourth quinquennial Old Home Day event. At that time, there was no town funding for the parade and barbecue, so we had to solicit donations from area businesses. And this was no easy task. The town of Sheldon is a small farming community with a current population of 2,200 and minimal manufacturing and small businesses. We reached out to neighboring companies for funding, and at the following town meeting, the society asked the townspeople to contribute $1,000 each year to help with expenses for the following Old Home Day celebrations, and this was approved. The mission of the Sheldon Historical Society is, as I'm sure with yours, to aggregate, preserve, display, and disseminate artifacts and materials of local importance and educational value. Additionally, the society has taken every opportunity to be present in the community by publishing articles on the history of our town, working with the history club at our local elementary school, and currently telling stories through exhibits and programs at our museum and social functions. In 2013, Sheldon marked its 250th town anniversary, and we seized upon this opportunity to sponsor yet another celebration and start raising funds for a future museum. We served sheet cakes and Ben & Jerry's ice cream, followed by a profitable fancy cake auction. Part of the attraction was listening and dancing to Joe's big band, but the other was providing an opportunity for townsfolk to gather, renew old friendships, and make new ones. The following year, we commemorated the 150th anniversary of the Sheldon Raid by reenacting the burning of the two-lane covered bridge by Confederate soldiers after they raided St. Albans. A typical meal of that period was served by local church ladies. There was no fundraising at this time, but we fostered relationships with community members while we shared a piece of Sheldon's important history. The Underwoods at the Abbey Restaurant in Sheldon have been strong supporters of the society. And in addition to hosting 2 spaghetti dinner fundraisers, they allow us to use their pavilion for celebrations and other fundraising events. Live and silent auctions have also proved to be good moneymakers at these dinners. One consisted of a fun project where members and friends of the society created amazing wooden benches built from used bed frames. This project was rewarding financially for the society and sparked a lot of community interest within both the volunteer craftsmen and the bidders. By 2016, the society was in negotiation with a local property owner over the possible purchase of a historically significant building on Bridge Street. At the town meeting in March, local residents voted to approve the purchase of this property and an additional $12,000 to start renovations. This 90-year-old structure was the only one built back after a disastrous fire of 1932 destroyed 8 businesses and a 2-lane covered bridge. The rebuild consisted of the building with a general store and a post office on the first floor, a town clerk's office on the lower level, and a community center upstairs. In most recent years, it was home to a harness shop. The first thing we had to do as tenants was replace the east wall foundation that we knew needed repair. And there goes $10,000 of the $12,000 the town gave us. Clapboards needed replacing, the first floor needed total restoration, and there was no usable restroom. So there we go, fundraising again. All this work to be done, and yet we were still excited to have a home where we would eventually display Sheldon's artifacts and tell its rich history. It was at this time the society really got serious about fundraising and grant writing. The community supported our efforts and generously donated items to begin with for a huge yard sale. And this again was at the Abbey Pavilion, where we raised over $4,000. We conducted a paint challenge, accepting donations of $30 to purchase 1 gallon of paint and $10 for a quart. And as you can imagine, our old but new to us building required, and still does, require a lot of paint. We've held annual tea parties until the pandemic arrived. These were very popular with the ladies, raising over $1,000 at each event. We incorporated a history lesson with each party, and of course gave an update on the progress of the museum rehab. In addition to an annual chicken barbecue, we've changed things up and held a pig roast that was also well attended. At the latter event, the Sheldon Elementary School retired staff sponsored a silent auction that raised over $900 to support our work. After several seasons of manual labor, fundraising, and keeping the public appraised of our progress, the museum was ready for its grand opening in September of 2019. Not only were society members proud of their accomplishments, but the community was gratified to see this old historic building rehabilitated and open to the public for viewing. And then the pandemic hit. 2020 was a lean year for fundraising for us. However, we got creative and published our first annual Images of Historic Sheldon calendar for 2021, depicting rare photographs with detailed storytelling that walked the reader through some of Sheldon's remarkable town history. A 2022 calendar is currently on sale. By adding a local business directory in the back of the calendar, we were able to generate additional funding from solicitations. In the summer of 2020, our post office in Sheldon Creek closed, and the equipment was removed to an undisclosed location. As a society, we were very interested in displaying the bank of brass post office boxes at the museum because that's where they originated, at 200 Bridge Street, until their relocation in 1958. We had to bid on them at auction, and with donations, were able to bring them home along with their oak frame. We decided to make the 80 boxes available to the public for $100 each. The boxes will remain at the museum with a brass plaque placed on the back of each one with each owner's inscription. To date, over half of the 80 boxes have been sold. So that has generated a fair amount of income for us. Members of our local Home Dem Club celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2021, and they challenged themselves to make 50 laps for charity. They exceeded their expectations, and 85 of their quilts were on sale at the museum this past summer. Proceeds greatly benefited our restoration project, and the quilts added another dimension to our domestic life exhibit. Being cognizant of the unknown with the pandemic, we postponed Sheldon Old Home Day 2021 until next year, but continued to maintain our presence in the community. We held a chicken barbecue on a hot summer day in July and an ice cream social on a sizzling evening in August, along with other outdoor activities, always keeping in mind we need to maintain our presence within the community. We have applied for and received several grants over the years, most recently a 2021 matching cultural facilities grant to add a restroom to a newly constructed addition and a lift to the second floor. We currently have 11 board members, 149 members, and numerous friends of the society, but few volunteers. One of our finest fundraising efforts occurred this fall, and we have to give credit to Dawn for that. So Dawn, I'll let you take over.
It's technology work. Can you hear me now? Before I go there, I want to go back to 2017. We had moved on to try to raise $115,000 through a capital campaign. My judgment is we were not successful. We were looking for people who were willing to contribute large sums of money. We did get one person that was willing to contribute $10,000 or did contribute $10,000, but we were looking for some additional funding as well. We were not successful with that effort. So this last year, I should also say that we went to the board members and said, what can you contribute? And we ended up with the board members contributing $24,500, anywhere from $50 all the way up to the most was a in-kind contribution of $7,500. The board stepped forward and made a major contribution at that time. Come this last spring, we said we've got to find another strategy. And from my take anyway, we did not have people that were going to come forward with the large donations. We had to find some other ways. And so we went at it. As Fern said, we looked at the post office boxes and we found people who were willing to buy for $100 each box. We're over half of those been sold at this point. We also looked at trying to life members. The life membership is $100. And so we said that set of funds would be used for improving the accessible entrance into the museum. I should also say that on the post office, we said, the post office boxes, we said that we would contribute those funds for the restroom and elevator. We needed matching funds to go with the grant that Fern spoke of. We also looked at having bricks installed, bricks with some kind of message on the brick, and that would be $100. And we ended up selling a number of those. We also said we were willing to put benches into the yard area, and with a plaque on each bench, and we sold one of those as well. On the bricks, we ended up selling 10. These both bricks and the bench, I think we ought to be able to continue, or should continue forward with those for this coming year. We also said we were willing to sell a name on windows, $500 per window. And we ended up selling 2 of those. In other words, we're going to refurbish, reconstruct windows and have those installed. There are windows there, but we want to upgrade and improve the window structure that exists. Again, the funds are to be used. I think the point that I would make here is we were looking at smaller amounts of money. We were also looking at, the message was these funds would be used for certain items. They're going to be used for the restroom. They're going to be used for the elevator. They're going to be used for the accessible entrance into the museum. And we also, we're talking about, as far as the bench, we're going to refurbish the old town clerk's office that's downstairs in the, which is really on the ground floor if you go to the side of the building. So I think the key element here is smaller amounts, and also it was targeted use of the funds. So that's where we are at the current time. We're going to be looking forward to moving ahead. It's not going to raise a huge amount of money. We're going to have to go at this in smaller amounts and probably take a longer period of time to raise the kinds of funds that we're going to need to totally refurbish this building. Vern, you want to add any items?
I think you covered it. Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you
that's the
both.
end of our story, and we would be happy to respond to questions or suggestions, recommendations.
Lorraine,
Do you find it hard to get volunteers to help with these projects?
Well,
I would
fortunately,
say
we have-
yes. Yeah, go ahead, Vern.
Yeah, fortunately, we have a fairly active board, and they, Don and myself included, we don't mind rolling up our sleeves and getting to work. But yes, finding volunteers, there's, it seems like the entire community supports their work and they give us high praises, but when it comes to volunteering, even an hour a week, it's or a month or a year, it's difficult.
We stopped having lifetime memberships. I'm in Fairhaven, by the way, because Middletown Springs advised us that we would be losing money to keep accepting them. We make more money by yearly memberships, which are really cheap, $10, $15 for a family. So we've just sort of done away with the lifetime.
I think you touched on a crucial issue is that you're not good, my judgment anyway, you're not going to get some of these people to add to their membership because they've already viewed that they have a lifetime membership. So I think we are going to have to look at an annual appeal of some kind above and beyond the membership.
What we also did with memberships, we now do sponsors from the businesses, and that's been saving us. So we have like 3 categories, and we named them like Marbleized Slate because our town is known for its slate. So the highest membership is 100, and then it goes down to, I believe, 65, and then maybe 35, and that's been very successful. That generates more money than membership.
I think we're going to have to, because we're getting more and more annual members or year lifelong members, we're going to have to go to sponsorship of some kind to get at some additional funds.
It really has been good, and we're willing to share any information or how we did it. Just contact us.
That would be good if we can get access to that information.
Sure.
Is that true for other societies as well, that you either have a membership campaign or you're running multiple campaigns at once with your donors? How are you getting people to, contribute to multiple different things at one time?
We looked at this, not everybody wants to buy a life membership, and not everybody wants to buy a brick, or not everybody wants to buy a bench. So we gave people the option. We didn't have everybody that wanted to buy into the restroom reconstruction or to fix the accessible entranceway. So we were trying to give people an option. We were looking for money, whichever way people were willing to make a contribution. So we put together a whole schedule of things. We sent this out to all members, and then we also sent it out to the taxpayers of the town.
I'm curious about your grants too, especially you said you got just recently received a cultural facilities grant. Was that a combined board effort, or do you have one specific person that's working to put these things together?
In this case, it was really one person that drove the application, and he ended up being the main contractor for the project. He did end up getting a volunteer to work with him, and the previous grant, it was another person that drove that effort.
Just trying to see if anybody else wants to chime in. What have you, I know you were talking about, oh, go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. We're very curious in Greensboro about involving children, and I noticed you had a history club at your school. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yes, one of our board members who he does a lot of research for our community, and he writes stories for the newspapers. He maintains their website. He went to the school and they developed a history club, and their main project was to research all of the homes on Main Street in Sheldon Creek. Excuse me if I call it Creek, because that's what it's known as. It should be Sheldon Creek. And so they went to the library, to the town clerk's office, and they researched these homes. They interviewed people, and they made up a walking map of each of the homes with a little bit of history attached. And also they received a grant to make and erect wayside markers so that folks can go to this area on Main Street, and they can read everything about the homes that they studied.
Thank you. Great idea.
I'm just amazed by the breadth of work that you all have been able to accomplish in so many different areas. George.
Yes, I'm George Edson, and I'm from the Montpelier Historical Society, and represent quite a different situation in that the Montpelier Historical Society is just becoming reborn, rejuvenated, whatever. It was founded in the early 90s, and around 2010, it became dormant. It retained its registration with the state. They've been a member of the Vermont Historical Society. They have a checkbook. They have a post office box, but it did not meet, and it was completely inactive. We are in the process of reactivating, so we're in many ways like a brand new society. Towards that end, and towards the purpose of this meeting in the way of fundraising, is to become a 501c3. Now, we were a 501c3, but you automatically lose it if you don't file a Form 990 for like 2 or 3 years in a row. So we are not a 501c3, and we have to go through the process again. I'm familiar with it because I did it once for another organization, and it was extremely complicated and took a long time. I just learned a couple of days ago that it has become simpler, and there's a Form 1023 EZ. So just like other things that are easy, if you qualify, it's much simpler. So we're just in the beginning stages of that. So my question is, has anybody else gone through the 501c3 process recently? Is anybody here familiar with that particular form and method?
Lorraine.
We lost ours, our 501c3 designation, just like you have. And it took our group, this is maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It took them a long time and a lot of work to get it back. So they're very diligent now about, sending in that yearly form. So because they did it like 5 years ago, it's probably changed since then.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know when the EZ became available. I went online and looked up the process, and first of all, you have to qualify. And on the instruction form, there's 3 pages of questions. And if you answer yes to any of those questions, you don't qualify. And there are things like how much money you have to take in less than $50,000 a year, which I think is not a problem for most of us. And but anyway, I answered no to every single one of them. So we do qualify. We just got to set about the process. But it as simple as it sounds with the word easy, guess what? It's not easy when you start dealing with IRS forms and instructions. So we're in that process.
I have assisted a couple organizations with that process. Again, it's how do you define easy? And it's it is federal paperwork. It's just a matter of walking it through. It's much less than it used to be, and it's 6 to 8 weeks after submission, you should get notified approval.
This is John Devino at the Ethan Allen Homestead Museum in Burlington. We had a slightly different situation. We are a 501c3. We have been for a very long time. At the end of the year, we have some people who make donations through their charitable trusts. And this year we had Vanguard Charitable and Schwab, who sent us a notice and said that there are donors out there that want to make a contribution, but we can't do that because you are classified as a 501c3 509A3, which we had never heard of, which meant that we were a supporting, or we were classified as a supporting organization, that we could, given a donation, we could pass it on to another charity. Obviously, we wanted to get that corrected. After contacting Internal Revenue, we were told that what we should do is to file as a 509A1. It's a one-page form with 8 pages of directions. So a typical government paperwork mill, if you will. And we did that. However, the little curveball is that there was a $500 charge to have ourselves reclassified as a 509A1. So from now on, I believe anyone who contributes through one of these charitable trusts will be able, the money will be able to come to us, which is very odd because we've had other charitable trusts who have forwarded donations in the past, but Schwab and Vanguard this year said that they could not do that. So the whole fundraising piece and the Internal Revenue piece it can be frustrating at times, for sure.
We had a family in town who wished to make a contribution to us. They had a daughter and son-in-law that worked for Microsoft, and Microsoft would match whatever the contribution was. They put that together, but Microsoft required a third party to process the whole gift activity, which we did proceed with. This was a year ago, and so there was ended up 3,000 from the family and 3,000 from Microsoft. Now this year, we are still enrolled with the third party. We got notified that the third party had another grant, or not grant, but a contribution. I don't know from who. That was $105, I believe was the figure that was contributed to the Historical Society. So I found that interesting that I guess it's got to be people out there who are looking for like interest or organizations that they can support. And so they ended up making an additional contribution of $105 to us in 2022.
Can I add in that one thing I'm hearing is I think that some organizations are undervaluing their membership and how much they're asking. And so I'm from Norwich, and yes, Norwich is a wealthy community, but our memberships range from $15 to $500. And we have quite a number of $500 memberships. And our annual fund, the boxes go up to $500. And we've had people say you really should have that box go higher. So I think it's worth offering the opportunity for people to give more. And the average membership that people give, even though 15 is what we say, is a patron at $100. People just write that $100 check. So I just urge you to take a look at that and provide the opportunity for someone to check a higher box.
I tend to agree with you that we're too low, but we've found people in our town is are much more willing to make these smaller contributions. They do not seem to be able or willing to make the larger contributions. But you may be right. We need to offer them the opportunity to go higher.
Mhm.
Montpelier, we're doing the same thing, offering a range. Again, we're brand new, so I shouldn't be offering any advice, but I'm just telling you what we're doing. And we, instead of reinventing the wheel, we copied a due structure from another historical society. And we felt it was important to keep a very low entry dues, and our dues will be $10, but there'll be choices to do more. And I think today a lot of people would do more, even if it was 15 or 25 or 50. So I think that's kind of a basic thing that that would probably be a good idea for most societies.
The Ethan Allen Homestead Museum has a membership fee. It's currently $35 for an individual and $50 for a couple. And it seems to be working fairly well. We get our regulars year after year, but I think we would really need, we have a volunteer who plans to work in this area to try to be more active in recruiting some memberships. But what we are different is that we don't have that community base that, you know, I think what Sheldon is doing is tremendous. For the Ethan Allen Homestead, we are in Burlington, but there is the Chittenden County Historical Society, which covers Burlington as well as other communities. And so we don't have that community base that some of you have, which I think is an advantage to you in some respects.
This is the argument you can make for having a small membership fee with the idea that you get as many people in the community to buy in. It may not raise the kinds of funds, but you hopefully will gain the community support. Whether or not it does, it's another question.
Yeah. One of my thoughts, very quickly, one of my thoughts would be to offer more honorable, memberships. What's the phrase that I wanted? To give memberships away, basically, in the beginning, and then the following year you can send them notices about, it's time to renew and so forth. So somebody makes a donation, I think we should just almost automatically give them an honorary membership for that first year and hopefully get them in the club.
Is it standard for most of your organizations to have some sort of return for the memberships, to have some sort of benefit levels, or is this usually a straight up donation?
Our members at the Ethan Allen Homestead get free admission for themselves and a 10% discount on items in our gift shop.
We also do 10% discount on our merchandise. And we do a quarterly newsletter for all of them. And if they're sponsors, they get special advertisement in the newsletter.
I'm curious just about how that changes with some of the community support. Is one of the things that, even at VHS that we struggle with is just, getting new people to be involved. We have different levels of donations and we have different levels of memberships. And once we have people involved with the work that we're doing, we do really good keeping them engaged with our work, but getting people through the door to begin with is a struggle for us, especially, as John was saying, we have the same problem. We're not really based in any one specific community. We're a statewide organization. So yeah, I definitely agree that having that, you guys are very much in your communities, working for your community. And I do think that is an opportunity for all of you. But that's one of the things that we certainly struggle with, is just getting people involved from the start.
We've offered free memberships to anyone who moves into town.
Hi.
That's a great idea. And I know Don was saying something about the taxpayer rolls as well. Is that something that you get from the town clerk's office, or how do you get that out to people?
Correct. Gets the list from the town clerk's office.
That's great.
I think I'd say bigger issue, an issue we all are faced with. We do not do a very good job in the ask. We all are hesitant, whether or not it's a $10 ask or $10,000 ask. I know I'm not very good at that process. Yeah, I think I understand how to organize and what we need to do, but I think the big thing is if we could all learn to do a better job in the ask, and we need to be able to sell that ask. I know we have one member of the board. I marvel at her ability to make the ask. You know, and I wish I had half of those skills, but I don't. And I think that's one of the things if there's need for training, and I'm not sure training does it, but we need more effort in learning how to do the ask.
Can I make a comment about the ask? My feeling is when you have a hard time asking, the worst thing that anybody is going to say to you is no. And if you can take that, I mean, that's it, you know, no, and you move on. I've been sitting here listening to, I'm from Halifax. I just became the president of the Halifax Vermont Historical Society. And I'm not sure if it's a mistake at this point. We have so many issues, I can't even begin to enumerate them all. We have a lot of apathy among the board members, which I have a feeling I would rather, they're just happy to do nothing because they've done nothing for many years. And when you finally get somebody who's interested and involved, it's very hard to get their support. We have a building, we have a museum, and we've had this museum for a very long time. And it is a pot in which we continue to put money into, and we get nothing back from it. I think that's one thing you have to wonder about when you go. I mean, it's great that you guys in Sheldon have a new building, you know, have the building and you're working on it. You got a lot of enthusiasm. But over the years in Halifax, the enthusiasm is at a low threshold. And the building now is costing us probably a minimum of $1,500 a year just in insurance and electricity. We don't have plumbing. There's no heat in that building because it's an old building from the 1800s. And it only stays open from May until October. And it is a money pit. It's going to cost us thousands of dollars to paint the building. We need new windows on the upper floor because it's got the old glass panes with the old putty that's cracking and falling out. And it's going to cost tens of thousands to get this stuff done. And you have a board that chooses not to do anything, it becomes a real issue. I am trying whatever I can and to get people motivated. And because of the fact we only have a very limited board of 5 people, and they're all in their 80s, and I just think they're kind of all set in their ways. And I feel as if I'm fighting the tide. And I don't know what to do at this point. I am so frustrated and trying to get people motivated, and I'm not getting any support. And I don't know. I don't even know what to do. Sometimes I keep thinking that it was a waste of time becoming the president to try to get these people motivated, because I think right now they're happy at doing nothing. They're used to doing nothing and they're happy at doing nothing. And we have a very small population of people. It grows in the summertime because we have a lot of out-of-staters who own property where we are. But during the rest of the year, we were about probably between a population of 300 and 400. And it's, and there's absolutely no interest at all in historical society. So if anybody's got any ideas, I'm all for hearing it.
Are there some people who used to live in your town that live somewhere else, but still have an interest in Halifax?
Well, unfortunately, we have one board member who doesn't even live in the town anymore. And I can't get, and she's in her early 80s and doesn't choose to drive too much down here anymore. And it makes it very difficult. Trying to get other people who are, I know whether or not the out-of-state people who own property, is that what you're questioning? Your question
Yes,
was about?
the people that have had an association with the town but do not live there. But you would get some interest.
Well, that's hard to, we only have we have 2 functions during the year that draw in people, and they're big ones. And we have a clam bake that is for the fire department. And I'm trying to get in at that one to do some kind of a raffle for the Historical Society. And they said that was okay, that I could come in and do that. But most of the people are in, I don't even know who the out-of-state people are. They come in, they stay for a couple months, a week or whatever, and they disappear. We don't even know who they are. We know they pay their taxes, but that's about it. So and then we have a hometown, but we haven't been able to have that in a large capacity because of COVID. And I think that's that's a big problem for these past couple of years, that we haven't been able to get out and do much because of the COVID issue. And the other thing, back to the museum, once you get that museum up and running, then you're going to have to try to find people to man the museum. And this is another issue we're having, is that the person that was there at the museum when we had it open on Saturdays isn't going there because of COVID. So we're not getting there's no people coming in and out. There's no traffic into that building. A lot of people have been living in our town for years and have never been in the Historical Society building at all. That's pretty sad. So we're trying to find ways of getting more involved in the community. I'm really at a loss at what to do with a community that chooses not to get involved too.
Does the town hold a town meeting?
We do. I've asked for money from the town. And especially we were getting money from COVID relief. I think that was the state was doling out money to everybody. And I went to the select board to ask them for some money so that we could at least have something to get keep the museum going. And we also have a 2-volume history book, and we want to reprint the first volume. And we needed money to do that. And I did ask the select board for some of that money that was coming in from the COVID relief, but I'm sure they want to spend it on things that are more important than a book. So I'm frustrated, as you can probably tell.
I know a lot of people are not impressed with Facebook, and especially older people, and older people tend to be more active in historical societies. However, in Montpelier, there are 2 excellent historical Facebook sites. Burlington has 2 excellent historical Facebook sites, as does Barrie, St. Johnsbury, Danville. And this in Montpelier has renewed or developed or whatever a tremendous interest in the history of the city. And the number of people that follow these 2 Facebook sites together is in the neighborhood of 3,000. And that's 3,000 people that have taken the effort to sign on to these sites and follow them with some kind of regularity. And for those of you who haven't ever seen such a site, it consists primarily of historic pictures And the administrators and supporters spend a lot of time. There'll be a post on one of the Montpelier sites, and then somebody will come in with a comment that will show a map of that location, one of the old historic maps. And you've all dealt with the historic maps and the Sanborn maps and all that stuff, beers. And it's awakened a lot of interest. So Andrea is wondering what can be done. Well, first of all, it's kind of hard to just go out and find somebody to start a site, but anybody.
We have one. I actually, my husband and I started up my feeling is if you don't have an online presence today, either in business or in any kind of a organization, I don't think you're going to make it, because, we had a website, and the person who was taking care of it just stopped paying the fee on it. She just unilaterally decided to stop paying the fee. So now we don't have a website anymore. We put up the Facebook site. And on occasion, we do get people that will comment on things. But as I said, we have a very small town and a population of 400, and there's just not a whole lot going on down here. There's not a whole lot of money down here either. So which makes fundraising difficult. I'm sorry to be Debbie Downer, but I'm looking for some inspiration. I mean, I don't know what to do anymore.
I think you're seeing it at a little bit of a larger scale, but I think this is something that a lot of places are dealing with, which is, what's the role of the Historical Society? What do people want from you? What is it that services does your audience want? And really looking at that connection to self and connection to place that you can provide them. I think it's trying to make sure that they know how important it is to have that sense of place, which is something that you with your history can offer them. I think the idea about town meeting is great. I mean, even if it's not asking, obviously you need funding. I get that. But I think you have to make them care first. Is there getting on the agenda of town meeting where you can really talk to the townspeople and see what do they want from you as the Historical Society? Is it to learn about their history? Is it to learn about records? Do they want programming? I know there's no easy solution, but I think it sounds like you almost have to start at square one, which is, what is your role for the town? What services should you be providing to the people?
Yeah.
What does the select board want from the Historical Society? They're supposedly the political leaders in town.
Well, I think if it comes down to a point where we can't keep the building running anymore, we may end up having to go to the town and say, look, this is the situation. Do you want to keep your Historical Society? And, because I have said to other members about getting rid of the Historical Society, the answer that I got from one board member, he says, well, what are we going to do with all that stuff that's in it? We don't act upon it because we don't want to have to take the time to go through all that stuff and have to possibly return it to people who had donated it. So it's kind of like they just don't want to do the work on any level. They don't want to do the work to close it, but yet they don't want to do the work to keep it open. And if it comes to a point where there's no money to keep it open, I think the alternative is we're going to have to save some money to pay an attorney to close it down. I mean, we can keep the Historical Society going, but whether or not it's financially feasible to keep a building going is another, especially when you have a building where nobody goes into. I don't understand the whole purpose of having a museum when it's not even open to the public, and and when it is, hardly anybody goes in it. I just don't understand the whole, and I can't seem to get that across to the board that this is just a waste of money, but I don't know what to do. I think what's going to end up happening is that we're going to have to go to the town and say to them, either we find a way, you guys find a way to keep this building open as part of the town, or we're gonna just close it down and call it a day. If you don't really care, if the town doesn't really care that the Historical Society exists or not, then I just think at this point it's just a waste of time. I don't know. I really don't know what makes the town tick, to be honest with you. It's a small population, as I keep saying, it's a small population, and I'm not sure where their interest lies, what it is that that gets them going. I don't know. Anyway, enough of me.
Andrea, where are you located again?
We're in Halifax, Vermont. You know, and we're at the very southern end of the state, west of Brattleboro on Route 9. We're right over the Massachusetts line.
Have you tried reaching out to any of the schools in the area? I know where, if there's a college, what would be the closest college to where you're
Well,
located?
our Marlboro College just closed last year. They finally closed up. The only that we don't even have a high school in our town. We have a regional town. We have a regional school. We have a K through 8 elementary school, and there's just I think I'm probably discouraged too, because of just the whole COVID thing has really just has screwed everything up, and our inability to get out to the classrooms and have any kind of interaction with the school system has been tough. And then trying to find people who in our group, in our small trustees, that want to do anything. They just don't want to do anything. They're scared to go anywhere because of their age and their health conditions. They don't want to interact with the public right now. And I can't blame them. I can't blame them. So yeah, maybe next year, if we ever get past, I'm sure at some point we're going to get past all this COVID stuff, that we can do some kind of outreach to the schools. I just hope we have enough money in our till to keep it going.
Maybe you could talk to your superintendent, because the superintendent must cover your local schools, and there may be somebody in the school district who would be looking for something, a way to reach out to the community, in the history realm.
Yeah. Yep. That's an idea.
What about joining with your closest historical society and become a part of them?
We've gone to the Whitingham, but they're not, unfortunately, they're having a lot of the same problems we're having. Lack of membership, lack of interest. We were trying to get something going with the library in town, because we don't have, you guys who are bigger towns have your own libraries. You have a much bigger, richer community, a lot more interest in history. We don't have that here. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anything. And we have done before we had COVID, we were doing joint meetings with Whitingham, which is the next town over. And we had been making all kinds of plans to do talks, because I have an archaeology background, and we were going to do some talks. I was going to do a couple of talks on Native Americans, and that ended abruptly because of COVID. And so that was the end of that. So yeah, we're looking into that. I think COVID has really caused a problem, big problem. I don't know if anybody else is suffering from the same issues, but
Can I share with you a program series that we're doing that has raised members and brought in quite a lot of money since COVID?
sure.
It's a program that we've done. I called it Discover Norwich. And last year, during COVID, I put together 5 Zoom programs, and I partnered with other nonprofits or not other groups in the community, because I wasn't sure people would be really interested in a lot of history programs, to be honest. And so, for instance, I partnered with the Trails community, the Trails group in town, and asked them if they would do like, how to go hiking in the winter. Where's the best trails to go hiking in the winter? And then I prefaced the program with old photos of skiing and, hiking in our town. I did one on I did one on birding, and with the local birding group, and I did a piece of diaries where people were talking about, you know, seeing the first robin. And then I did one, so there was that. Then the most popular one was our general store. I went with our storekeeper down into the basement, and I took all sorts of photos of behind the scene of all the old stuff that was there and showed those. And then we just, I just interviewed him, and he told stories of like robberies and like all sorts of stuff that had happened at the general store. So I did it last year to be a fundraiser. The cost to do it was you either had to go get a meal at a local restaurant for takeout because it was a fundraiser for the restaurants because it was so bad last year, or to give money to the food pantry. Every week we did this. More and more people signed up till we had more people show up to it than the town meeting. And we raised over $5,000 for the food pantry. So this year, I said, well, I'd really like some of that money to come to us. So I set up another Discover Norwich series, and it's totally by donation. I said the money would go toward helping maintain our building and heat our building and fix our chimneys, and that we would give 20% to a citizens heating assistance fund. And I said, totally by donation. You can choose to do it or not. Suggested donation $20 for a talk, which I thought was a lot. So our first one's tonight. We have over 200 people who signed up, and most of them have given the money. And so the things that I noted were the donation piece rather than charging a fee has been, someone gave $100 for one program. And then the other piece was partnering up with another group in town so that they can help publicize it to their people. And it isn't just about the history. And what I found out was that people were like, could you talk more about the history? Because I do like 10 minutes about history, and then the rest of it, I turned it over to the trails people or the bird people or whoever. And people just started saying, actually, we want to hear a little bit more history and see more old photos. So this year, tonight is Abenaki, it's the first one. And then we're doing one on the road to the Olympics with former Olympians in town. And then there's one on foraging. And then there's going to be a quiz show night. And one more sort of more straight history one. But people are just signing up in crowds. And then the other thing I did every single night was I said, if you're not a member, please join. And I put the link in the chat. And we got dozens of new members. Now let's hope they all renew this year. But people were becoming members during the program. They're like, yes, we'll support your work. And it was almost like they hadn't been asked before. They just had never had the opportunity to do it. So I just throw that out that it's proven. I think we're going to make our entire program income budget for the year tonight.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add or any questions before we wrap up? All right, so obviously we will make this recording available, and I mean, certainly any questions. I mean, Andrea, if you wanted to get some more ideas offline, if you're signed up to the LHS listserv, that's also a great place to continue some conversations. There's really good traffic on there for responses that might get you a little bit of a broader response range and a little more geographic diversity too.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Eileen, correct me if I'm wrong, we're back on February
24th. So we're going to be talking about board recruitment and retention, and Dan Yeager from the New England Museum Association is going to be joining us to help us talk about that. But I think it sounds like that's definitely a thing that all of us here are honestly struggling with, but something to talk about and see what we can come up with, and certainly at the very least talk it through with each other. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, bye.